Most of us grow up with a simple mental model of how vision works. Light comes in, eye captures it, brain sees it. Like a camera. Clean, direct, faithful. But this model is wrong in almost every important way. Let's start with the eye itself. When light enters your eye, it first passes through the cornea, a curved transparent dome at the front of your eyeball. The cornea does most of the actual focusing work. About 70% of it, in fact. Most people don't know that. They think the lens does the heavy lifting. It doesn't. Then light travels through the pupil, that small black opening you've stared at in mirrors your whole life, into the crystalline lens, which fine-tunes the focus, and finally the light lands on the retina at the back of the eye. Now here's where it gets immediately strange. The retina is not a smooth, uniform sensor. It's a thin sheet of neural tissue, actually a piece of your brain that migrated into your eye during embryonic development. You are literally seeing with part of your brain right now. And this retinal surface contains two types of photoreceptor cells, rods and cones. Rods handle low light, black and white vision. You have about 120 million of them. Cones handle color and detail. You have about 6 million. And here's the critical part. They are not spread evenly across your retina. Almost all your cone cells are crammed into a tiny region called the fovea. It's about 1.5 millimeters in diameter, the size of a pinhead. And this tiny pinhead is the only part of your visual field where you see in real detail and real color. Everything else, the entire peripheral world around you, is being seen with far fewer cones, dramatically lower resolution, and almost no color accuracy. Right now, as your eyes rest on these words, only the words directly at the center of your gaze are being seen in detail. Everything around them is a low-resolution blur that your brain is quietly upscaling, filling in, and convincing you is sharp. You are not watching a high-definition movie. You are watching a lo-fi slideshow of small sharp snapshots, stitched together at such speed, and with such confidence, that your brain sells it to you as a seamless high-definition, fully colored reality. And that's just the beginning, because there's something else in your retina, something far more unsettling. There is a hole in your eye, a real, physical hole. It's called the optic disc, the point where the optic nerve connects to the retina. At this location, there are 0 photoreceptors. None. The eye is completely blind at this spot. This means that right now, in your visual field there is a region you literally cannot see. A gap. A missing piece of reality. It's not small either. The blind spot in your vision is roughly the size of 15 full moons laid side by side on the night sky. And yet, you've never noticed it. Not once in your entire life. Why? Because your brain erases it, instantly, automatically. Every moment of every waking day, your brain looks at the signal coming in from your eye, notices the missing section, and simply paints over it. It fills the hole with whatever pattern, color, or texture is surrounding it. A seamless, invisible patch job that you will never detect without deliberately hunting for it. Your brain is censoring your reality and you never consented to it. Think about that, the organ you trust most, the one you use to navigate the world, read faces, judge danger, assess truth, has a physical hole in it that it's been secretly papering over since the day you were born. Let's talk about color, because this might be where the illusion gets the most personal. Color feels real. It feels like a property of objects. The sky is blue, blood is red, grass is green. These seem like facts about the world, objective truths, physical realities. They are not. Color does not exist in the physical world. Let me say that more precisely, because it's important to get this right. What exists in the physical world are photons, particles of light, traveling at different wavelengths. Wavelengths are just distances, physical measurements, numbers. The wavelength of what we call red light is approximately 700 nanometers. The wavelength of what we call blue is around 450 nanometers. These wavelengths have no color. They are not red. They are not blue. They are lengths, numbers. Color is what your brain assigns to those wavelengths. When 700 nanometer photons hit the cone cells in your retina that are sensitive to long wavelengths, those cells send an electrical signal to your brain. Your brain then, based on millions of years of evolutionary wiring, interprets that signal as the experience of red. That experience, that rich, vivid, warm sensation of redness, is entirely created inside your skull. It doesn't exist outside of it. A camera sensor receiving the same 700 nanometer photons experiences nothing. There is no redness anywhere in the universe until a conscious brain creates it. This concept, the idea that conscious experience creates qualities that don't exist in the physical world, has a name in philosophy. They're called qualia, and they represent one of the deepest unsolved problems in all of science and philosophy, the hard problem of consciousness. But let's stay with the biology for now, because the color story gets even stranger. Your cone cells come in 3 varieties, roughly sensitive to short, medium, and long wavelengths, corresponding loosely to blue, green, and red. From these 3 channels, your brain constructs your entire experience of color. But here's what that means. You are seeing the entire visible spectrum through only 3 data points. Your brain is interpolating the richness of color from a triangle of inputs. Other animals have different numbers of color receptors. Bees have 4 types, including one sensitive to ultraviolet light. They see a reality of color that is literally invisible to you. A bee looking at a flower sees patterns of ultraviolet markings, landing guides, pollen maps, that you cannot perceive at all. The flower is showing information to the bee that your visual system has no capacity to receive. Mantis shrimp have 16 types of color receptors. 16. The reality those creatures experience, the world they move through, is so far beyond your color perception that it's almost impossible to even imagine. An entire dimension of visuals experience that is closed to you, not because it isn't there, but because evolution didn't wire you to see it. The world is wider than your vision. And then there's color constancy, perhaps the most elegant trick in the entire visual system. When you look at a white piece of paper under bright sunlight, it looks white. When you look at that same piece of paper under yellow indoor lighting, it still looks white. But the light bouncing off the paper is completely different in each case. Under sunlight, the paper is reflecting full-spectrum white light. Under yellow indoor lighting, it's reflecting predominantly yellow-orange wavelengths. The raw data reaching your retina is different. Dramatically different. But your brain compensates automatically, adjusting for the color of the ambient light source, and delivers you a perception of white in both cases. This is extraordinary. This is your brain performing complex mathematical corrections, adjusting for context, for environment, for the physics of illumination, in real time beneath your awareness, to maintain a consistent and useful model of the world. But it also means you're never seeing raw reality. You're always seeing processed reality, corrected reality, interpreted reality, and sometimes that correction fails in spectacular ways. In 2015, a photograph of a dress nearly broke the internet. Some people saw it as white and gold. Others, looking at the exact same image, saw it as blue and black, and the disagreement was so intense, so seemingly impossible, that it went globally viral. The reason? The photograph was ambiguous about the color of the ambient light source. Different visual systems made different assumptions about the lighting, and those different assumptions produced completely different color experiences from identical visual input. To 2 people. Same image. Genuinely different realities. Not opinion, not preference. Different realities. This is not a quirk or an error. This is your visual system operating exactly as designed, making its best guess about the world based on incomplete information. Usually it gets it right. Occasionally, in carefully constructed ambiguous conditions, it reveals that the guess is all it ever was. Now let's talk about motion, about the experience of watching the world move, because your eyes are not video cameras. They do not record a continuous stream of visual data. They are not feeding a live feed to your brain. Your eyes move. Constantly. Rapidly. Involuntarily. These movements are called saccades, and they happen 3 to 5 times per second, meaning your eyes are making between 150,000 and 250,000 rapid jumps every single day. During each saccade, your eyes are moving so fast that the visual signal they send would be a complete blur, useless, disorienting, nauseating if you were actually aware of it, but you never see that blur, because your brain suppresses your visual awareness during every single saccade. It turns off your visual processing, briefly, imperceptibly, every time your eyes move, then turns it back on once they've landed on a new fixation point. This is called saccadic suppression, and it has a deeply strange consequence. Right now your eyes are constantly moving, and your brain is constantly blinking out your awareness during those movements, then seamlessly stitching the still images between them into a continuous experience of smooth, flowing reality. The movie you believe you are watching, the smooth, continuous, cinematic experience of the world, is an edited highlight reel, a montage. Your brain has quietly deleted the blurry footage, and you have never once noticed the cuts. There's a simple experiment that reveals this. Stand in front of a mirror. Look at your left eye. Then quickly look at your right eye. Then left. Then right. Notice anything? You cannot see your own eyes move. No matter how fast you look back and forth, the eyes in the mirror always appear to jump while they're stationary. You never catch them mid-movement. A camera pointed at the same mirror would capture the motion easily, but your brain censors it. Every time, because seeing your own eyes move creates a perceptual conflict. The world is moving relative to your eyes, but your proprioception says your head is still, and your brain has decided, somewhere deep in its evolutionary logic, that suppressing this perception is better than showing you the blur. It is protecting you from your own vision. But saccadic suppression isn't even the most aggressive editing your brain does. There is something called change blindness, and it is one of the most humbling discoveries in all of visual neuroscience. In a classic experiment, a researcher walks up to a stranger on a street and asks for directions. Mid-conversation, two people carrying a large door walk between them, briefly interrupting the interaction. Behind the door, the original researcher is quietly replaced by a different person, different height, different hair, different clothes, different voice, and then the conversation continues. And the majority of participants don't notice. They continue giving directions. They don't stop. They don't say, "Wait, you're not the same person." They just carry on. The brain didn't update its model of the scene during the interruption. It assumed continuity. It assumed the person in front of them was the same person, because nothing in its processing flagged a reason to check. Vision, it turns out, is not a comprehensive scan of the world. It's a set of targeted predictions. A hypothesis engine that picks what to look at based on what seems important, and fills in the rest with educated guesses. Most of the time, this works beautifully. But the filling in, the guessing, the suppression, the editing, these are not bugs, they are features. Your visual system is not a faithful recorder of reality. It is a ruthlessly efficient, metabolically expensive, highly selective prediction machine, designed to give you a useful and actionable model of the world, not a true one. So if your eye is not a camera, what eye is it? Let's trace the full journey of a visual signal, from photon to perception, because this journey is more extraordinary and more unsettling than almost anyone realizes. Light enters your eye, hits the retina. Photoreceptors respond. So far, so simple, but then, the signal has to travel to the brain. And to do that, it passes through the optic nerve, a bundle of about 1 million nerve fibers, exits the back of the eye, and travels to a structure deep in the center of your brain called the lateral geniculate nucleus, or LGN, in the thalamus. The thalamus is a relay station, an information hub. Almost everything your brain knows about the outside world passes through it. From the LGN, the signal travels to the primary visual cortex at the very back of your skull, the occipital lobe. This is where basic features are first extracted: edges, contrast, motion, orientation. But this is not where you see anything yet. From the primary visual cortex, the information splits into two major pathways. Neuroscientists call them the what pathway and the where pathway. The what pathway runs along the bottom of the brain, the ventral stream, and is responsible for identifying objects, faces, and forms. The where pathway runs along the top, the dorsal stream, and is responsible for spatial awareness, movement, and guiding actions. These two streams involve dozens of distinct brain regions, each specialized for different aspects of visual processing. Your brain has over 30 separate areas dedicated just to processing vision. 30. More cortical real estate is devoted to vision than to any other sense. In fact, roughly 30% of your entire cortex is involved in visual processing. And through all of these areas, through all of this processing, the brain is not passively receiving information. It is actively generating predictions about what it expects to see, and comparing incoming signals against those predictions. This is called predictive processing, and it is one of the most important ideas in modern neuroscience. Here's how it works. Your brain already has a model of the world, built from a lifetime of experience, memory, expectation, and prior belief. When visual signals arrive from your eyes, your brain doesn't just process them from scratch. It asks, does this incoming data match my prediction? If it matches, great. The prediction is confirmed. You barely register the sensory input consciously. If it doesn't match, the discrepancy is flagged. Your attention is drawn. You actually look. This means that most of what you consciously see at any given moment is not incoming sensory data. It is your brain's prediction. Your eyes are providing error correction signals. Updates, not the primary image. You are right now living slightly inside your own mind simulation of the world, peering through a window that updates when reality surprises your model, but mostly runs on stored assumptions and pattern completion. You are not in the world. You are in your brain's best guess about the world, and the brain's guess, while usually brilliant, is shaped by something that goes beyond neuroscience. It's shaped by culture, expectation, emotion, past trauma, desire. In study after study, researchers have shown that what we see is influenced by what we want to see, what we fear, what we expect. People in threat detection mode perceive ambiguous objects as more likely to be weapons. People in certain emotional states miss visual information that others catch easily. Athletes perceive the ball as larger when they are playing well. Hungry people perceive food-related words in briefly flashed letter strings that others miss entirely. Your visual system is not neutral. It is not objective. It is soaked in you, in your history, your emotion, your biology, your attention. The world you see is a self-portrait. Here's something that will quietly undo you. The world you are seeing right now is in the past, not metaphorically, not philosophically. Literally, vision takes time. The process of light entering your eye, signals traveling through your optic nerve, reaching the visual cortex, being processed through dozens of brain areas, integrated with sound and touch and memory and expectation, and finally arriving as a conscious experience. All of that takes approximately 100 milliseconds, 1/10 of a second. That doesn't sound like much. But think about what it means. By the time you are consciously aware of seeing something, it happened 1/10 of a second ago. You are always watching a replay. The universe experience is not the present. It is a recently reconstructed version of a moment that has already passed. And here's where it gets even more complex. Different aspects of vision are processed at different speeds. Color is processed faster than motion. Motion is processed faster than faces. Faces are processed faster than words. So the visual reality you experience isn't even internally consistent in time. You are perceiving a composite, a stitched-together scene built from signals that arrived at different moments, synchronized by your brain into a fake simultaneity. Your brain timestamps and reorders sensory signals to create the illusion that things happened at the same moment, even when they didn't. In experiments where light flashes and sound clicks are played with tiny delays between them, delays that objectively measurably exist, people report perceiving them as simultaneous because their brain has learned that they should belong together and has helpfully adjusted the timestamps to make them match. You are not perceiving time. You are perceiving your brain's edited version of time. Now think about what this means for eyewitness testimony, for memory, for certainty about what you saw. The legal system, the justice system, has for centuries placed enormous weight on eyewitness accounts. I saw it with my own eyes, the ultimate evidence, but neuroscience has systematically demolished this confidence. Eyewitness testimony is remarkably unreliable, not because people are lying, not because people are careless, but because the act of seeing is reconstruction. And reconstruction, especially under stress, under time pressure, under emotional loading, introduces errors, gaps, confabulations. Memory and perception are tangled in ways that the justice system is only beginning to reckon with. Studies suggest that eyewitness misidentification has contributed to the wrongful conviction of innocent people in a staggering proportion of cases. People went to prison because human visual perception was treated as a reliable instrument when it is in fact a beautifully unreliable, deeply personal, self-editing story. Now let's step back, because we have to ask the bigger question. If vision is construction, If what we see is a model, not the truth, then what is actually out there? This is a question that has haunted philosophers for as long as there have been philosophers. Plato, in his allegory of the cave, described prisoners chained facing a wall, watching shadows projected by objects behind them, and mistaking those shadows for reality. The shadows are all they know. The shadows are their world. He was writing in 380 BC. He was, it turns out, more right than he could have known. The philosopher Immanuel Kant drew a distinction between the noumenon, the thing in itself, the world as it actually is, and the phenomenon, the world as it appears to a perceiving mind. He argued that we can never have direct access to the noumenon. We are forever locked in the phenomenal, in our own perceptual and cognitive structure. In the 20th century, the neuroscientist and philosopher Thomas Metzinger took this further, arguing that the self, the very experience of being a subject, a person, a you watching the world, is itself a model, a neural construct, a story the brain tells about itself. There is no window. There is no transparent observer looking out at reality. There is only the model all the way down. And modern neuroscience has generated an astonishing framework that unifies all of this. The theory known as the controlled hallucination. This phrase was coined by neuroscientist Anil Seth, and it is perhaps the most important idea for understanding what vision and consciousness actually is. We are, according to Seth and a growing number of scientists, all hallucinating all the time. But typically, our hallucinations are controlled. They are constrained and corrected by incoming sensory data. The world outside pushes back against our internal model. Reality asserts itself through error signals, and so our hallucination tracks reality closely enough to be useful. In dreams, those constraints are released. The error signals are reduced. The hallucination runs free. But the mechanism is the same. Dreaming and waking perception are not opposites. They are points on a continuum. The same neural machinery generates both. One constrained, one unconstrained. You are never fully awake to reality. You are always, in some measure, dreaming. So where does this leave us? You woke up this morning believing you saw the world. You don't. You see a story about the world, an extraordinarily detailed, brilliantly constructed, evolutionarily refined story, written by a brain that has never once seen light, operating on inputs it barely understands, filling gaps with memory and prediction, editing out the blur, painting over the whole, inventing color, delaying time, synchronizing signals that arrived at different moments, and delivering it all to you as smooth, continuous, confident reality. And maybe, just maybe, that's more beautiful than the alternative, because what your brain is doing is not deception. It is artistry. It is taking the raw, meaningless, colorless, quantitative data of the physical universe, wavelengths and pressure waves and chemical concentrations, and turning it into experience, into richness, into a world that has color and depth and meaning and beauty. None of those things exist in physics. All of them exist in you. You do not see the world. You create it. And every other conscious being, every human, every animal, every creature with a nervous system and a history and a biology, creates a different one. There is not one world. There are as many worlds as there are minds to perceive them. The universe is dark and silent and colorless. And somehow, from that darkness, life invented light. Not just the photons, the experience of light. And that, more than any telescope, any particle accelerator, any equation, is the greatest mystery in the known universe. The fact that there is something it is like to see. The fact that you are watching this right now, and that somewhere in the electrochemical storm of your extraordinary brain, a world is being born. Keep looking. Even knowing it's a dream, keep looking, because the dream is the most remarkable thing that has ever happened in a universe of 14 billion years, and it is happening right now, behind your eyes.